our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Hi, you're listening to Radio Algeria International. Today, top stories. The Prime Minister Nadir Lahbawi has presided over the opening session for an international seminar held under the auspices of President Abdelmajid Tebboune. President Tebboune has said that the commemoration of the 63rd anniversary of the demonstration of the 11th of December 1960 was a moment from which we nourish our determination and sacrifice. As the Israeli army has pursued its airstrikes against the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian has gone on a general strike to protest against the 60 days long war waged by Israel. With you today, Mariam Bershi and Jamal Silmani. First news. The Prime Minister Nadir Lahbawi has presided over the opening session of an international seminar held under the auspices of President Abdelmajid Tebboune. Addressing the meeting, the Prime Minister had the following.
Major economic reforms have been launched by Algeria with the aim of diversifying the national economy and liberating the initiatives and improving the business and investment environment. These reforms have been crowned with a global review of the investment laws according to an approach based on transparency and the fight against bureaucracy and equity among the economic partners, in addition to the adoption of a new mode regarding the allocation and management of the real estate. Such an ambitious economic policy is part of the major efforts made by the state with the objective of enshrining the social character of the Algerian state, considered one of the main principles of November 1st declaration that laid the foundations for the social welfare policy.
Placed under the theme Economic Stakes and Social Gains, the seminar is organized by the Ministry of National Solidarity in collaboration with the UN Fund for Population here in Algeria. The meeting is aimed at shedding light on the social gains that favored cohesion and social justice with the aim of meeting the concerns of the citizens. In this respect, Algeria's experience in taking in charge the different segments of the society, including women, youth and the elder, will be highlighted by government members taking part in the part. The vice chairperson of the Chinese Women Federation is the guest of honor of today's meeting, which is also attended by the special advisor to the UN Secretary General of the African Affairs. The meeting was attended by the social ministers of African and Arab countries, expert searches and representatives of the civil society. And now the President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to examine several projects related to a number of sectors. Jamal Silmani has more details.
According to a communiqué issued by the Council of Ministers, the President has instructed the relaunch of the Hassim Saoud refinery as soon as possible. The President of the Republic has also ordered to redouble efforts into diversify production capacities for oil-derived products to export them abroad as they represent considerable added value. Regarding the progress achieved as part of seawater desalination plant projects, the President of the Republic stressed the need to speed up the completion of plants all along the country's coastline in order to meet the demand of the citizens. President Tebboune insisted at the Council of Ministers on meeting the deadlines for the completion of the Bashar Tindouf Garaj Bilet railway line. He instructed the government to present a detailed vision and study of the needs of the national market in terms of red meats and cereals to avoid any disruption and preserve the stability of prices. The President has ordered the immediate transfer of grain storage silo projects to the governors or walis of the Republic, stating that the expansion of storage capacity was part of the country's new policy and forward-looking vision on the issue of food security. Following the adoption of the Council of Ministers of a bill on the film industry, President Tebboune instructed the Minister of Culture, Soraya Mouloudji, with the creation of a national body whose missions will be assigned to people working in the sector in order to supervise the film industry and revive this vital sector, particularly with the production in recent years of excellent dramatic works and the emergence of young talent in acting and directing. Back to you, Mariam.
Thank you, Jamal. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmejid Tebboune, has said that the commemoration of the 63rd anniversary of the demonstration of the 11th of December 1960 was a moment from which we nourish our determination and sacrifice to follow in the footsteps of the martyrs or war veterans with a view to pursuing, with the efforts of all, the development of the country. Jalmin Selmani has more details for us.
Yes, Mariam, in a message on the eve of the commemoration of the 63rd anniversary of the demonstrations of 11 December 1960, as we recall the grandiose historic images of the demonstrations of 11 December 1960, President Tebboune wrote, quote, "We are committed to ensuring that these efforts do not cease and are not interrupted by the challenges of resistance to change until we have achieved the objectives which we have set as our priorities, whether it be the new economic recovery model, improving living standards and purchasing power, guaranteeing the conditions for a dignified life, and preserving Algeria's place and role at regional and international levels." The President of the Republic highlighted the significant advances that have enabled our country to open up broad prospects for sustainable development, to enshrine the spirit of citizenship and decent life, and to establish itself as a pivotal and reliable partner for her contributions to the establishment of peace and stability in the region and throughout the world. Back to you, Mariam.
Thank you, Jamal. The head of the National People Assembly, Mr. Brahim Boughali, has handed in a letter from the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmejid Tebboune, to Argentina's new president, Mr. Javier Milei. In his letter, President Tebboune expressed that Algeria will continue to cooperate with Argentina in various fields. He hailed the Argentina's people trust and said he wished President Milei's mandate to be successful. Let's recall that the head of the National People Assembly represented President Tebboune at the swearing-in ceremony of Argentina's new president.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. The Minister of the Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, today held talks in Qatar outside the Forum of Doha with his Rwandan counterpart. The two men examined the ways and means of strengthening the cooperation relations between the two countries, notably through the Algerian-Rwandan Joint Commission and political consultation. They also exchanged views on the latest developments in the Middle East, as well as the Great Lakes and Sahel regions. Now, Energy Minister Mohamed Erkab is taking part in the 12th Arab Energy Conference in Doha, Qatar, and at the meeting of the Council of Ministers of the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries. Mr. Erkab is accompanied by the CEOs of Sonatrach and Sonalgaz, together with executives from the ministry and the two groups. The 12th Arab Energy Conference, being held under the theme Energy in Arab Cooperation, brings together a number of ministers and officials from the energy sector under the aegis of Emir of the State of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. During the two-day conference, the participants will examine a number of important issues, including developments in the global energy markets and their repercussions on the Arab energy sector, in addition to energy, environment, and sustainable development issues.
And now the Algerian people commemorated today the 63rd anniversary of the December 11th, 1960 protest, which raised the voices of the Algerian people for the right for self-determination, as well as the right for the people to be free and for the independence of Algeria. This historic moment was a decisive move in the war for independence. It expressed the rejection of the people for any option that would not result in the independence of Algeria, a united and indivisible Algeria. Our colleague Wahib Amiri from the Spanish service at Radio Algeria International contacted human rights and people's activist Mahrez Lamari, who said the following.
At a time when the Algerian people commemorate the anniversary of the December 11, 1960 protests, and as human rights and people's activist, I committed myself following the path of our people attached to this country, and at the November 1954 Resolution Declaration, which contributes to the liberation and the independence of Algeria. It also had an impact on the continent for the freedom and independence of all Africa. Today, no one can hide this historic moment. It constitutes a decisive moment for the national war of liberation and expresses the rejection of any other option. As called by the citizen mobilization, the popular resistance of December 11th, which took to the streets claiming for self-determination and independence for Algeria.
On the 66th day of the Israeli aggression against the Gaza Strip, the Israeli war machine continues to bomb various areas of the Gaza Strip and target civilians, which led to the killing and injury of dozens of people, the majority of whom are children and women. The Red Crescent Society said that at dawn today, occupation warplanes launched violent raids in the vicinity of El Emel Hospital in Khan Yunis. Medical sources reported that the bodies of more than 40 people were brought to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir el-Balah since yesterday as a result of the continuous bombings of homes, in addition to 32 bodies brought to Nasser Medical Complex in the southern Gaza Strip during the past 24 hours. The occupation warplanes bombed a house in the Nasiriyat camp in the central Gaza Strip, killing 5 civilians, including 3 children, a house of Deir el-Balah in the central Gaza Strip, killing a woman and a child, and a residential square in the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood in northern Gaza, where dozens of bodies were recovered, while dozens of others are still under the rubble.
Still with the Gaza file, life came to a standstill in the Palestinian territories today as a general strike is observed in line with the international call for a global strike in protest against Israel's 66-day-long genocidal war against the Gaza Strip, in which 18,000 people were killed, mainly children and women. The local strike paralyzed all aspects of life, including public transportation, education and the financial sector, shops and all sorts of businesses, amid calls from mass protests in all cities. The call for a global general strike was made to protest Israel's ongoing devastating war on Gaza and to push for a ceasefire, opposed only by Israel and the United States, which on Friday vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in the war on Gaza, supported by 13 members of the 15-member council, with Britain abstaining. Activists on social media had launched calls for a general strike around the world in solidarity with the people of the Gaza Strip in the face of Israel's genocidal war, to urge their governments to take serious actions to stop the Israeli massacres and genocide crimes that have been continuing for more than 2 months. Now to sports. The president of the Algerian Football Federation, Walid Sadi, has announced that he would not be attending the 2023 Confederation of African Football Awards ceremony scheduled for today in Marrakesh, Morocco. Last Thursday, the Confederation of African Football unveiled the 3 finalists for the various CAF Awards trophies, including that of African Player of the Year, better known as the African Golden Ball. To everyone's surprise, Riyad Mahrez was not included in the trio despite his hat-trick of trophies last season with Manchester City. Our colleague Yasin Mihoubi contacted Ghanaian journalist Nuhu Adams, who has this to say.
Honestly, it's quite difficult to understand that USM Alger are not in the running for Club of the Year award at the 2023 CAF Awards, because you look at what Usman did in the course of the year, I think they deserve to even win Cup of the Year, to win the CAF Confederation Cup, go ahead and beat El Ali, the CAF Champions League winners, and win the CAF Super Cup is enough for Usman to have won this award. At least, even if they are not winning, at least second place in that category would have been much better for Usman. For Riyad Mahrez, it's quite shocking that Mahrez didn't get a nomination in the final three of the CAF Footballer of the Year awards. You look at what he did with Manchester City, it was amazing, and he was instrumental in that treble Man City won. And even after that, his exploit in the Saudi League has been very, very remarkable. So actually, I think Riyad Mahrez should have at least been in the last three for the CAF Footballer of the Year.
Another huge misunderstanding in USM Alger, which won 2 of the 3 inter-club trophies at stake in 2023, is not in the top 3 at the CAF Awards. Our colleague Yassine Mihoubi also contacted Algerian journalist based in France, Meher Mizahi, who commented the latest move by CAF.
The other decision, however, for example, to leave USM of Algiers out of the top 3, I think is scandalous. Al Ahly should quite clearly be the club of the year. They won the CAF Champions League. They won the Egyptian Premier League. They're currently in the final of the Egyptian Cup. They reached the semifinals of the FIFA Club World Cup. So for me, they quite clearly should be the club of the year. But I think USM of Algiers should obviously be second or third. They won the CAF Confederation Cup and they won the CAF Super Cup. So they won 2 trophies, 2 international trophies. Now, obviously, what hurts them is that they finished very low in the table of the Algerian League last season. However, the fact that they won 2 international major trophies, for me, should make them a top 3 finalist. Sundowns only won the South African League and didn't win anything else. And Wydad Casablanca won absolutely nothing. So for me, that's kind of a scandalous vote to include Wydad Athletic Club as one of the top 3 finalists. That for sure is valid criticism. Having Riyad Mahrez not in the top 3, I think, is perfectly fair.
In addition to Algeria, Nigeria and Egypt will not be taking part in the CAF Awards. Romani, Victor Osimhen and Mohamed Salah have also announced their absence.
Hi and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. First in the news, the proceedings of the Summit of African Ministers in charge of startups, which saw the participation of 34 countries, has wound up in Algiers with the adoption of the Algiers Declaration for the Development of Startups. The preliminary draft resolution on the fight against the brain drain on the continent, which the African countries led by Algeria will submit to the African Union, was adopted by all the summit participants who praised Algeria's leading role in the field of startups. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has spoken of the possibility of extending the voluntary and additional reduction in Algerian crude oil production beyond March 2024 if necessary in order to reduce volatility on the international market. OPEC and its partners in the Declaration of Cooperation remain extremely vigilant and attentive to the evolution of oil market fundamentals in the short term. If necessary, the possibility of extending the voluntary cuts beyond the first quarter of 2024 cannot be ruled out, underlined Mohamed Arkab, quoted in a press release from the Ministry of Energy and Mines. Similarly, additional measures could be envisaged if they prove necessary to ensure lasting stabilization of the oil market, he added. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has received the Mauritanian Minister of Employment and Vocational Training, Zainabou Ahmed Dalna, with whom he examined ways of cooperation in the sector, according to a press release from the ministry. During the meeting, which took place in the presence of the Mauritanian ambassador to Algiers and officials from both ministries, the two parties reviewed bilateral cooperation relations described as fraternal and ways of strengthening and developing them in the fields of energy and mining, notably in the area of training in hydrocarbons, electricity and mining. In more Algerian economic news, the Minister of Trade and Export Promotion, Tayyip Zitouni, has taken part in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, in the 12th meeting of the Council of Ministers of the African Continental Free Trade Area, says a press release from the ministry. The meeting focused on examining the Secretary General's report for 2023, the discussion of the progress rate of the e-commerce protocol promoting the participation of women and young people in African trade, as well as the investment protocol to be submitted to the heads of state and government of the African Union for adoption as the document. The CEO of the Sonatrach Energy Group, Rashid Hashishi, has visited development projects at the Hassim Masoud Regional Production Department, the group said in a statement. Rashid Hashishi began his two-day visit 5th and 6th December by a meeting with engineers and managers from the regional division at the Ira base, where he listened to an exhaustive presentation on the division's development plan, as well as the results and production levels across all the oil fields it covers. According to participants in a panel held in Algiers, stimulating creativity and improving training are all benefits of talent mobility, which has a positive impact on the startup ecosystem in Africa. Taking part in a panel entitled Unleashing Talent Mobility for a More Flourishing African Startup Ecosystem, organized as part of the second edition of the African Startup Conference, the founder of the consultancy firm Branco Algeria and the incubator Tech2 Hub, Karim Bruri, said in his speech that the mobility of talent is first and foremost a matter of transferring knowledge. He added that this transfer of knowledge will enable African talent to perfect their training by improving the aspects in which they are lacking through exchanges and contact with people from different backgrounds and profiles. And to wind up our program, an Algerian startup aims to produce and market an electric scooter in Algeria at a cost of almost 3 million euros. The project, initiated by Mohamed Ali Selmi, who lives in Tunisia, was presented to the Minister of the Knowledge Economy, Startups and Micro Enterprises, Yassine El Mehdi Walid, at a pitch session as part of the second edition of the African Startup Conference. The project is the fruit of an Algerian-Tunisian partnership that has made it possible to produce the first African scooter with an 80% integration rate. Mohamed Ali Selmi, who has the Kako startup based in Tunisia, told APS. And with this we come to the end of our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. Goodbye.
On the streets of strife. In tormented Algiers, Frenchman clashes with Frenchman as students and veterans riot in protest against de Gaulle's announcement of a plan to give Algeria its own choice between independence or continuation.
Historic leader of the National Liberation Front, Abban Ramdan, wrote on December 15, 1957 on El Mujahid Daily that, quote, "The mass movement constituted a privileged historic movement which couldn't be reflected, but is the culmination of an irreversible process that no one could predict its growth."
Adding to the bitter toll.
Historic Chief Larbi Ben Mhidi, for his part, said that, quote, "Let the revolution take the streets and the whole people will grab it." The heroic struggle of the National Liberation Army not only lasted for 6 years, but the mobilization of the people for the benefit of the revolution also sparked the demonstrations of December 11, 1960, which allowed the Algerians hold a peaceful demonstration to reaffirm the self-determination of the Algerian people against the France's policy aimed at keeping Algeria within France on one hand, and on the other hand to express their opposition to the French colonists or settlers who cultivated the dream of French Algeria. The Algerian Revolution of Liberation, with its constant struggle and sacrifices, led to the fall of 7 consecutive governments of the French colonialism from November 1954 to June 1958, notably the Fourth Republic, which afterward gave birth to the 5th one in 1959, with General Charles de Gaulle recalled at its head.
Il paraît que le gouvernement ait donné des ordres sévères de n'utiliser les armes qu'en dernière extrémité. Mais au cours de cet après-midi ont eu lieu les premières tentatives de descente dans les quartiers européens. Et il y a eu de nombreux morts.
Charles de Gaulle, who continued in occupied Algeria the use of political assassination against Algerians and supporters of the Algerian Revolution, such as Larbi Ben Mhidi, Ali Boumendjel and Maurice Audin, continued also military offensives. The latter were carried out across Algeria to crush the Algerian Revolution, such as the Étendard Offensive. The installation of barbed wire called on the generals Charles and Maurice on both the eastern and western borders were also aimed at crushing the Algerian Revolution. This harsh military presence and offensives were strongly supported by the Pieds Noirs. Pieds Noirs is a term referring to people of French and other European ancestry who lived in French North Africa, namely French Algeria. In 1956, they who were ready to use all means to keep Algeria French, threw tomatoes at the then head of the council, Guy Mollet, who dismissed General Georges Catroux. As resident minister in Algeria for the government of Guy Mollet in 1956, he was unable to take up his post because of demonstrations in Algiers by French residents on the 6th of February. From the beginning of the colonial revolt, explosive labor disputes and waves of mutinies among conscript soldiers who refused to go and fight for French Algeria affected dozens of French cities and towns. As the war went on, support for the colonial regime was declining at lightning speed. The financial consequences of the war began to create a budget deficit that spiraled out of control. The unparalleled savagery deployed on Algerian soil by the authoritarian regime of Charles de Gaulle, who had taken power in France in a parliamentary coup in 1958, could not end the war. The offensive launched by the French troops in 1959 had deeply affected the Algerian Liberation Army, which was the armed wing of the National Liberation Front as a fighting force. But the heavy price, politically and socially, was directly affecting the French ruling class's confidence and capacity to continue the war.
Écoutez-moi! Retournez chez vous! Qu'est-ce que vous voulez? الاستقلال! روحوا بلادنا! الاستقلال! الاستقلال! الحقوا حريتنا!
The mass, peaceful independence demonstrations of December 1960, with the urban Algerian masses spontaneously pouring onto the streets in favor of independence on a scale far exceeding what the FLN predicted, marked a turning point. Moreover, in April 1961, the mass of French soldiers rebelled against an attempted coup by the generals. De Gaulle had to struggle desperately to regain control of the army, but he knew he had to act or risk losing control. This is what ultimately happened with the signature of the Evian Agreements between the FLN and the French government in March 1962, opening the path to an independent Algeria on the 5th of July 1962, thanks to the Algerian people's determination to get again its independence.